Known for her courage and wisdom, Nia had earned the trust of everyone in the village. But behind her quiet strength, she carried a secret that no one in the village knew. Years ago, her close friend Kwame had left the village and disappeared. Now, after a long absence, Kwame had returned, and his reappearance would bring Nia's hidden truths into the light, forever changing both their lives. When Kwame left the village, everyone believed he was destined for greatness. Rumors spread that he had gone to the city, built a successful business, and become a wealthy man. The villagers eagerly anticipated his return, expecting him to bring prosperity with him. However, the truth was far from this hopeful picture. In reality, Kwame had failed miserably in the city, falling into deep debt and becoming entangled with dangerous men. With nowhere else to run, he had returned to the village, seeking refuge. But the villagers welcomed him as a hero, completely unaware of the troubles he had brought with him. As Kwame tried to reintegrate into the village, the shadow of his debt followed him. The dangerous men from the city were closing in, determined to collect what he owed. Kwame tried his best to keep his troubles hidden, but Nia, ever perceptive, began to notice that something wasn't right. One night, she followed Kwame out of the village and saw him meeting with a group of mysterious men. These men made it clear that Kwame had to pay his debts or they would bring harm not only to him but to the entire village. Nia understood the gravity of the situation and knew that she had to do something before it was too late. But removing Kwame from the village without causing alarm wasn't going to be easy. Meanwhile, the villagers, unaware of the looming danger, began to pressure Kwame for more. They expected him to build schools, provide jobs, and improve the village's infrastructure. The younger villagers hoped Kwame's connections would help them find work in the city, while the elders anticipated he would reform the village's education system. Kwame, overwhelmed by their expectations and the pressure from his creditors, felt like he was trapped in a tightening web. When Nia discovered that Kwame planned to ask the villagers for money to pay off his debts, she confronted him. She told him the only way out was to tell the truth. But Kwame, afraid of losing the villagers' trust, refused. He couldn't bear the thought of being seen as a failure. Nia, knowing the weight of the lies could no longer be carried, struggled between protecting Kwame and preserving the village's peace. As the days went by, the situation grew more complicated. Kwame's creditors started openly threatening him in the village square. The villagers, confused by these men's presence, began to question Kwame's story. Some of the younger villagers, who once admired him, started to suspect that Kwame wasn't the successful businessman they had believed him to be. Gossip spread like wildfire. Was Kwame the hero they had thought, or had he been deceiving them all along? In the midst of all this chaos, Nia worked tirelessly to protect Kwame and save the village from falling apart. She devised a plan to reveal the truth during the village's annual festival. The festival was the perfect time for Kwame to come clean, to tell the villagers the whole story and begin to make things right. But for Nia's plan to work, Kwame would need to summon the courage to face his past and admit his failures. When the day of the festival arrived, the village was abuzz with excitement. Everyone gathered to hear Kwame speak, expecting a grand announcement of new projects and opportunities. As Kwame stood on the stage, the villagers looked up to him with hope and admiration. But inside, Kwame was tormented by guilt and fear. Instead of telling the truth, he continued to lie. As the crowd cheered, his creditors slipped into the festival, blending in with the villagers, and began to openly threaten him. Nia, seeing the danger escalate, took to the stage herself. She revealed the truth about Kwame's debts, explaining how the dangerous men had come to the village because of his financial troubles. But the villagers, misunderstanding her words, thought Nia was defending Kwame against a conspiracy. Instead of turning against him, they rallied around him, seeing him as a victim of the city's corruption. This misunderstanding only made the situation more complicated. As the festival continued, tensions between the villagers, Kwame, and the creditors reached a boiling point. The villagers, still believing in Kwame, offered to help pay his debts. But this wasn't a sustainable solution. Kwame knew that if he continued to lie, it would only be a matter of time before everything unraveled. He had one final chance to tell the truth. But when the moment came for Kwame to finally confess, He hesitated. Nia, realizing Kwame's silence, took matters into her own hands. She stood in front of the villagers and confronted the creditors, risking her safety to protect the village. The villagers, inspired by Nia's bravery, stood by her side, defending Kwame against the creditors. The creditors, outnumbered and overpowered, were forced to leave. At the end of the festival, when the villagers believed they had won, Nia approached Kwame privately. With a heavy heart, she told him that he could no longer stay in the village. "You can't outrun your past, Kwame. The truth always catches up," she said softly. Kwame, shocked by her words, realized that his time in the village had come to an end. Nia knew the full extent of the secret Kwame had been hiding since he left the village years ago. It wasn't just the debts that had brought him back. It was a mistake he had made long ago that had finally caught up to him. As Kwame prepared to leave, Nia revealed the painful truth. Kwame's downfall had begun in the village, not in the city. Years ago, before he left, Kwame had unknowingly caused great harm to the village's sacred traditions, a harm that had gone unspoken for too long. Now, as he walked away from the village for the last time, Kwame knew that he could never escape the consequences of his actions. The villagers would never know the full story, but Nia would carry the weight of that secret alone.